Hi, my name is Mariah and I am a BFA graphic design student. I'm a senior this year and will be graduating in May 2020. Borders and divisions pique my interest. For example, the US-Mexico border. This border is rich with both potential conflict and potential connection. I am interested in the ways that we build borders to keep us in or other people out. What happens when we start to question these borders? In the past couple of years, much of my work has been about borders, division, and welcoming people. An example of that work is a book I designed called Feliz Viaje. It is a book about an undocumented immigrant attempting to enter the U.S. from Mexico seeking asylum. The book follows this man's journey while graphically representing the complexity of the immigration system. More recently, I completed a piece called Welcome to Holland. This is a book about the ethnic and racial borders and divisions in my hometown. It critically analyzes the way that Holland welcomes minorities and uses lines on a map throughout the book to show these divisions. For my current body of work, I researched countless maps of the US-Mexico border and specifically looked at the sections that have a physical fence. Less than half of the border has a physical wall in place to stop or slow traffic. The sections of physical border fence are shown on this map in red, yellow, and green. The easternmost 100 miles of the border has a significant amount of instances where the physical border wall, shown in red on this map, is a large distance away from the map-drawn border. Here is a close-up. In some cases, it is multiple miles away. Maps are conceptual, and the space between the physical border fence and the map border is left undefined. This is the gray space on this slide. My project is also driven by my interest in identity design. Historically, identities have been used to give agency to a company or brand to help them design cohesive visuals that attract new customers and give brand awareness to its consumers. Nordkin, MIT Media Labs, and EPFL alumni are just a couple of examples of dynamic identities. These identities change each time they are produced, and they adapt according to their individual variables to create a different visual output each time. Recently, a design studio called Moi designed a collaborative dynamic identity for Puerto Rico, where Puerto Ricans could come and choose a variety of symbols that were representative of them. Moi Studio then used an algorithm to create individualized flags based on what colors and symbols each person had chosen. The result was a celebration of Puerto Rico's national identity composed of a variety of different flags representing the people of that nation. I started asking questions because of my interest in both the border and identity. Are borders arbitrary? Who decides who is in and out? In what ways could we as a nation welcome people? What creates a sense of belonging? If we call attention to these physical spaces that aren't quite inside or outside of boundaries, those spaces have the potential to connect us. My project is called Out and In. It redefines the liminal spaces along the US-Mexico border that are both inside and outside of two borders simultaneously. Part 1 of this project began with the identification of 20 different in-between spaces along the easternmost 100 miles of the border. Using these spaces, I designed a dynamic border identity. These logo marks re-identify the space in between physical and conceptual borders and encourage us to define these spaces in new ways. For Out and In, a new visual form is designed for each portion of the physical border wall that is built that doesn't line up with the map-drawn border. It is representative of the ever-changing and dysfunctional nature of the border. By signing a piece of legislation, a new border wall could be built or torn down. The border is arbitrary, and by designing a dynamic identity for the space between two boundaries, I am not only naming this arbitrariness, but questioning the function and very existence of the border as an arbitrary divisive tool. I continue designing visuals using a gradient. The gradient is made out of opposites on the color wheel, which represents the opposing sides of the border coming together in a fluid and connective way. The logos were then applied to different place-making identifiers as they might be found being manifested in the physical spaces of the border. This includes signage, flags, and passports. This identity makes a physical space into a place, and it offers refuge, belonging, and connection. A sense of patriotism, nationhood, and belonging often come through citizenship and representation. Metahaven designed a visual identity for an island that is called the Province of Sealand. This visual identity isn't a celebration of statehood, like the Puerto Rican national identity, but rather it questions and critiques the traditional ideas of nationhood and what it means to be considered a state. It redefines a space and turns it into place. It offers new ways to belong and be welcomed in. I want people in transit to be welcomed and to find belonging throughout and in the border identity. For part 2 of my project, I transformed the physical border wall. This physicality of the border fence interested me in its repetition and pattern. I then took satellite images of the border and turned the physical fence into the gradient I had made. This transforms the border to be a connection point rather than a division point. Architect and designer Ronald Rail thinks about the border as a connection point as well. Through a seesaw sculptural installation at the border, he transformed this divisive space into a place of connection where people from both sides of the border could interact in a unique way. I had some hesitations about addressing the border issues in my work because I am a white, privileged woman who lives far from the border. I am in many ways removed from the things that happen at the southern U.S. border. So what gives me the right to address it in my work, even though I don't have personal experience with it? Well, I believe that first, part of being privileged means having an open mind and knowing what you don't know. I am interested in this issue, and because I don't know much about it, I want to learn more. I want to be informed and educated. Second, my work bumps against border discourse and identity discourse. I have always wondered about place as it relates to identity and what it means to feel like you may not belong to just one place. What happens if you feel like you belong in multiple places all at the same time? My work also addresses a larger audience. Other people should care or take interest in this work because they might learn something about our borders or be encouraged to learn more. Maybe they will start to examine the ways they have let ideological or physical borders in their own lives keep them apart from other people or keep them from understanding and seeing into the lives of others. Throughout and in, I am identifying in-between places at the U.S.-Mexico border. These in-between spaces are new kinds of places that are being built through the movement of people in the face of rising intolerance and discrimination. By redefining these liminal spaces to be connective spaces, I'm attempting to make our nation and our world a more inclusive and welcoming place. I'm also asking people to see the border in new and transformed ways as a place and space for connection. Thank you.